So you might be seeing people everywhere talking about the Bitcoin death cross. It sounds bad, but let's see if this is something you should actually be worried about. So this is the recent price of Bitcoin, and these two lines are called moving averages. The green line is the 50-day moving average. So it's the price of Bitcoin in the last 50 days. This red bar is a 200-day moving average, so it tracks the price of Bitcoin for the last 200 days. So when the 50-day moving average crosses below the 200-day moving average, that's what we call a death cross. So the short-term average price has dropped below the long-term average price. So the reason why it's called a death cross is because if we zoom back to the last bull run in 2017, so a death cross happened at the end of that bull run, which marked several years of a bear market where the prices stayed consistently low. The reason why people are scared of the death cross is they think that this might happen again, where the price will stay consistently low for months to years. So the thing is, with the death cross, it's known as a lagging indicator. So what that means is, it tells you about what's happened in the past. It's telling us what we already know. So because the price dropped in May, we expected the short-term green moving average to start dipping. And because the price is, in the last 200 days, the price has moved up, we expected the red line, which is the 200-day moving average, to keep moving up. So if we look back at other death crosses that have happened, you can see one happened in 2020 after COVID, but after this death cross, the price actually sprung back. So we could discount this death cross as an anomaly due to COVID. And if you keep going back, there was another death cross in October 2019, where the price dropped, but only by a little bit and only for a short amount of time. And then the only other death cross before that was the one that we've spoken about in 2018, which actually had some predictive value. So in the last 3 death crosses, only one had real predictive value. So does this mean that we're going to have to wait a few years until the price pumps again? Or does this mean you should sell your Bitcoin? I'm not selling, and I don't think that this death cross signals the end for Bitcoin this year. And I'll tell you why. So looking at this price pattern that has happened since January, it maps almost exactly to this price pattern called the Wyckoff Distribution that is an indicator of market manipulation. So the video to watch on this is from Uncomplication, where he was the first guy to expose this. If there's market manipulation going on, it means that the price has deliberately been forced to drop. So the institutions that conspire to drop the price of Bitcoin know that if they can control the lines on the chart, they can control people's behavior and make them buy or sell. So I think that deliberately causing this death cross is a tactic to try and get people to sell all of their Bitcoin at this reduced price where institutions can buy it up, because we know that a lot of people that invest in Bitcoin follow the trend. You'll get loads of people queuing up to buy it when the price is booming, but when the price crashes, hardly anyone wants to buy and everyone wants to sell. So the stage that we're at in the Wyckoff distribution is something called the accumulation phase, where the price will start bottoming out and hitting this support level. So from what we've seen so far, this support level is somewhere around 30,000. So we're accumulating here. There'll be a certain amount of time where the price is bumping around 30 and 40,000 until the price starts climbing back up again. So it's important to note that when markets get manipulated, they can only control it for the short term. In the long term, it depends on Bitcoin's fundamentals and adoption, which are still looking very strong. So this thing that we're doing when we're looking at the price and the patterns on the chart is known as technical analysis, right? Technical analysis is only one way to assess if you should buy or sell. The other things to look at are fundamental analysis and global events. So technical analysis is looking at the charts. Fundamental analysis is looking at what is actually happening with Bitcoin. So another reason why I think this death cross doesn't matter is if you look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin, nothing's changed. Right? If the price dipped because Bitcoin had been hacked, then I'd be worried, but nothing's changed. Instead, there's institutions all around the world that are now adopting Bitcoin. So we got this venture capital firm, Andreessen Horowitz, that are raising 2.2 billion for crypto fund. And you've got all of these huge banks that are now considering or starting to offer crypto services. The best example is the fact that JP Morgan are now considering and starting crypto services, when in 2017 The CEO said Bitcoin was a fraud and threatened to fire any employee who traded it. And Goldman Sachs, who used to be against Bitcoin, are now saying that it's a new asset class. So if these institutions are now getting into Bitcoin, they're not going to want to buy it when the price is high. There's been a history of price manipulation in things like the stock market, where the price is deliberately forced to a lower position so these big institutions can buy it when the price is lower. And not even banks, right? Entire countries are now adopting Bitcoin. So El Salvador is making Bitcoin legal tender, and Paraguay are set to follow. It's not even just the huge corporations or countries. Some of the most popular and successful individual investors around the world are still buying Bitcoin. So there's Ray Dalio, Paul Tudor Jones, Jack Dorsey, Michael Saylor, Cathie Wood. None of them are saying that it's time to sell. All of them are still buying Bitcoin. So I'm not selling anything. In fact, I'm going to be buying. And the fact that there's been a death cross means that in the future there will be a golden cross happening. A golden cross is the opposite of a death cross, which is where the 50-day moving average moves above the 200-day moving average. So I'm just buying, waiting for that moment to happen, because when the golden cross happens, that will signal the price to start booming again. So if you're watching this and you're worried about the price, when in doubt, zoom out. The price is still well above where it was this time last year. What I think is going to happen is, if we go back to, this is 2013 now, and the price went crazy. When we go forward to 2017, that 2013 dip just looks like a tiny little bump. And then after 2017, if we zoom out to where we are at today, the 2017 blow up just looks like a tiny bump as well. So that's what I think is going to happen with this. We are going to look back in a few years and see this huge burst as just a tiny little bump in the road.